This seemingly endless stream of stories has been called the divine play. And in this time of great confusion, it's a good thing to remember. So we're going to play. What are we playing with? But that's the question that might be asked. Have you ever seen that clip where a cat is placed in front of a table and a number of cups are on the table, and then a ball is placed under one of the cups and the cups are moved around rapidly, but the cat can always pick which cup the ball is under? Have you ever wondered how the cat does that? And you know, these two words, sometimes it's said that stories are abstruse, and sometimes it's said that stories enigmatic. And we know abstruse means veiled or unclear, and enigmatic means puzzling. So really, what's the difference? Maybe this question can be asked after this story. But you know, it's been suggested over these last days that we have to become divine psychologists, with the qualification that we can only become divine psychologists when we've learned and understood the workings of existence, the laws of existence, and the chemistry of existence. And there's a story about a fisherman who was down by the ocean casting his nets, but after a long day he was unsuccessful in pulling in any kind of catch. But just as he was about to draw in his nets for the last time, it happened that he pulled out of the ocean a bottle. It seemed to be of metal, and he thought to himself before he tossed it back in the ocean again, well, you know, this might be worth something if I sell it after having not a good day of fishing. I might as well sell this bottle for the metal that it contains, because it looked like it might be made of brass, and brass was of value at that time. But then he suddenly noticed that on the top of the bottle there was some seeming hieroglyphics or something of that sort. But in fact, what these hieroglyphics were indicating was that this bottle had been tossed into the ocean by the great King Solomon, because captured inside of that bottle was a genie who knew the ways of magic, but had been enclosed in the bottle and cast out into the ocean until man was ready to master the powers that the genie in the bottle represented. So, being curious, even though he couldn't understand what the hieroglyphics were saying, the fisherman decided that he would open the bottle. Maybe there was something of value inside. He shook it a bit, you know. But after he'd taken the stopper out of the bottle, all of a sudden he noticed that a wisp of smoke was coming out from its opening, and suddenly there appeared before him this great, monstrous genie, and the genie said, well, now I'm going to destroy you. And the fisherman said, well, how can you destroy something that's just released you from bondage? And the genie said, well, because that's my nature. So the poor fisherman was in quite a dilemma. He didn't want to be destroyed and annihilated. But, as he was kind of pondering those hieroglyphics, he suddenly had a thought which he verbalized. And it was a sensory thing too, because he saw this monstrous genie, and he said to the genie, "You couldn't fit in that bottle." And the genie said, "How can you doubt me?" And with that, the genie took himself back into being a wisp and disappeared in the bottle again. So the fisherman quickly put the stopper on again and tossed it out into the ocean. So really some decades passed, and there was an adage attached to the hieroglyphics, and that was, man can only use what he has learned to use, and man has not yet reached that point of learning. But the decades passed, and it so happened the son of the sun, who happened also to be a fisherman, came down and cast his nets into the ocean, and somehow he drew out this bottle again. And he contemplated it. He didn't look at the hieroglyphics somehow. He didn't notice those. But as he was handling the bottle, that adage that really had been passed down to him from his father and his father's father, man can only use what he's learned to use, came to him. So he thought about it, and he decided to go and seek the counsel of a wise man that he knew lived in the mountains. And so when he did, he explained what had happened, and strangely enough, the wise man quoted the same adage, man can only use what he has learned to use. What would you like to have from the genie in the bottle? Because that was part of the story, of course. And the young fisherman said, well, he might be able to give me riches, he might be able to teach me things that I don't know. But after this exchange, the wise man only repeated the adage that had been passed down. Man can only use what he's learned to use. So the young man pondered about this and decided to leave things as they were, and kept the stopper in the bottle and threw it back in the ocean again. But after that he was quite different. He gave up being a fisherman, and he became quite a well-known teacher, expounding the adage, man can only use what he learned to use. Now, of course, we know from life that those he taught took it in a different way according to their own lights. But the adage remained with its core of truth. Kind of like the ball under the cups, maybe. So the question that can be asked is, what does this adage, this saying, mean for us? And of course that's directly related to this suggestion that we can only become divine psychologists when we first learned and understood the workings of existence, the laws of existence, the chemistry of existence. Why is it that there is a need for us to know and understand the workings and laws and chemistry of existence before we can become divine psychologists? Is this perhaps to do with the genie in the bottle? This divine psychology? Is it as implied? No, I'm going to continue. What is this meaning for you? What does it mean for us? Where does it place us? Man can only use what he's learned to use. Where are we when we can claim being divine scientists, divine physicists, divine alchemists, knowing and understanding the ways of existence, nitty-gritty life? What's happened for you as they've come together seamlessly in the encounters, the experiences of life now? How, in other words, how are you using this knowledge, having learned the ways? And how does that place us in a situation where we can begin to claim being divine psychologists?
I think that in the past, I was like flotsam and jetsam. Life was moving me. And the difference is that now I feel like I'm not moving as I want to be.
Is this got to do with that ball in the cup?
I see the ball in the cup as that cat has to know.
Absolutely.
Otherwise he doesn't survive.
No. What is this ball and how do we know? But it's, I'd be out of a job if we get there too fast.